Awesome. Okay, real quick. So I just want to run through the agenda of what we're going to cover here, and then I'm going to dive right into everything. So first, I'm just going to cover some of the things that happened last weekend in Salesforce. Some of y'all may have noticed some differences when you logged in yesterday from last week. So I'll touch on those. Then I'm going to walk through and explain some of the things on everyone's homepage. If you're in sales, you've been in sales, it looks the exact same for the most part. But everyone coming from the AM org, your home screen is going to look different. So I'll explain what those different boxes are. After that, I'm just going to run through all of the objects that we use here at Salesforce, touch on some new fields that have been added. And then I'm going to follow that up with walking through some custom applications. So I'll walk through Salesforce Maps, which is going to be new to the AM org. And then I'll walk through the lease-up tracker, which the account manager team, our previous account management team, you guys have been using that already. You know what that is, but it's going to be brand new for the sales organization. And then I'm just going to touch on some changes that are going to happen this weekend. That'll be new when you come in next week. And then while I'm walking through this, I am going to switch between two different users so that the view that you see makes sense to what I share is going to be exactly what you see on your end. Being that I'm an administrator, I have a lot more fields to look at. So I'm going to use Brooks as one guinea pig, and then I'm going to use Haley as my other guinea pig, and log in as them, and show you what the view looks like. So to hit that first point, to just cover some of those changes that have happened last weekend. So as I mentioned in that email, the RAM field is now gone in Salesforce. You won't see it on the contacts, accounts, opportunities, communities, etc. And then cases as well. It is off that object. That was used before for quite a few things, such as like if you were a RAM overseeing an AM and their communities, you could use that field to say, hey, show me all of the communities where my AMs manage that relationship. Now that that is gone, what's happened is the community owner is now the current AM. And then if we had an AM depart, any of you RAMs, you are now the owner of that community. So that's how you can see whether or not you're responsible for that relationship between now and the end of the day, Friday. Also important thing to note, if you used any reports or list views that referenced that field, because it is now gone, that view is no longer valid. So like when you go to communities and you might have a view that said RAM, my properties, or like active communities by RAM, that no longer is filtering correctly because the RAM field is gone. We also got rid of the sentiment object. So if you had, you'll notice in the drop down that option is now gone to click on sentiment. And if you had any reports that referenced sentiment, they're now gone. If you had a dashboard that you looked at that looked at sentiment as well, that dashboard tile will throw an error and it will say we cannot load this data. That's normal. That's just because we got rid of that. And then we also updated account ownership on Friday. And so if you are an NAE or an RAE, you now own an account in Salesforce and all of the contacts that live under that account, with the exception of current on-site community staff. The way that works right now is if someone is a property manager or a regional manager tied to an active community in Salesforce. The current AM or RAM that's overseeing that currently owns that contact. And that'll be just through now and through the end of the week. Reason for that is myself, Brandon, and Vince are going to send all of the messaging to the clients so that you guys don't have to. We're going to send that communication tomorrow morning. And Schmidt shared some of those FAQs and responses that we want to give them. I'll pause if there's any questions or concerns around that for now. And if not, then I will jump right into the demo. So I'm going to log in here as Brooks. And then I'm going to go to the homepage. So, yeah, to repeat Brooks there, no dumb questions. While I'm going through something, if you don't want to, you can either raise your hand or just drop something in the chat. In between each object or like subsection, I'm going to pause and I'll take a look at the chat or see if anyone has any raised hands, and then I'll address those questions at that time. So I'm here at the homepage at Salesforce. I like to use this as a main hub to get you any updates or just provide any helpful links to things that you might use on a day-to-day, rather than you have to bookmark them. Everything I feel like should live on the homepage in Salesforce. And so in this top section here, you'll have this large tile and it has tabs within it. This first tab is always going to be any large organization updates or incentives that we're running as a sales team. They'll always be announced on the Monday calls that we have. So that might be like a revenue all hands, the weekly meetings with the national team or weekly meetings with the regional team. Anything that applies team wide will get put in this section here. So I would say any new team members, take some time, read this information here. We do have an end of the year promotion that we're running between now and the end of the year. And so we've outlined what that is and some best practices for that. Additionally, the next tab here called My PLD. So that's just going to be, as an AE, you're going to sell deals. You're going to be responsible for that relationship. Anything that you've already sold that has not yet launched will show up in this PLD section. So that's how you can keep up to date with properties that you've sold to and when they're going to launch. If the dates change, you'll get an email notification when the dates change, but you can just keep up with them in a list view here. Over here, then we just have any opportunities that you have that are in the last stage, the last two stages, and we'll cover that later, that are closing in the quarter we're in now. And then the last tab is just going to be the team dashboard, and we'll rename this from RSM to sales team, but then this will just show the stats, where the team's at month to date, quarter to date, year to date. Who has sold the units, etc. Yes, Amber, we'll get you that for the NDSs. Over on the right, we have this section here, helpful sales links, and this is going to, all of these bullet points are hyperlinked to an external source or somewhere in Salesforce. So we have our team drive, just our Google Drive for the sales team, the deck that you'll use on pitches, samples of our contracts, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I will say for any new team members joining the sales organization, I would take some time in your downtime to go through and click through all of them, make sure you have access to that Google Sheet, that Google Drive, whatever it is, because I'm sure there are going to be things over the past few weeks where we've simply slipped through the cracks to get you access to that. Right under that section is what is called a sales area approval screen flow. As all of you know, like we work in a very geographic business. Operations has a predefined space in each market where warehouses can service properties from. It's not uncommon that we have a regional or a property manager that has a handful or one property that might be just outside of that line or maybe a mile outside of the line, but that deal is contingent on, hey, we'll get 3 properties if we can also service that one. So if something falls out of that service boundary, what we ask that you do is you come into this little section here and you simply just fill out the address of the property, what warehouse it would be serviced out of if we could service it, how many units, the priority, when you need the answer by, and then you'll just hit next. And then what that'll do is it's going to assign a task to one of the 3 directors of operations. So Justin, Mark, or MJ. They'll get it. They'll look and see if they feel like we can service that property with reasonable service. And then they will update the task to say it's approved, denied, or if it has some contingency. And when they respond to that, you'll get an email with them letting you know if it's approved to service that community or not. And then underneath this top section, we just have bulk creating opportunities. So if y'all are out there and let's say you talk to a regional manager and they say, hey, I want to run this, roll this out across my whole portfolio, rather than you go through Salesforce one by one and create each opportunity at a time, you can type in all of the information here, then click this plus button. It'll drop down another section, and then you can just easily create multiple of them at a time, and then just hit create opportunities. And then it'll create whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6 of them at once, rather than you'll have to go through one by one. And then at the bottom, we just have any open tasks that you have. Pretty self-explanatory there. I think everyone here has used the task object in their past. All right, any questions there before I move on? All right. So next, just going down the drop down, I'm just going to touch on accounts. This is probably the least pressing one of them all. Everyone knows what an account is. It just represents either an ownership group or property management company. And it is the parent or like the highest level of the hierarchy in Salesforce. Everything is going to roll up under the account. And so when you click on accounts, I highly suggest that everyone, when they have this drop down here, you'll see my accounts. That is going to be pre-filtered to any account that has been assigned to you. That is important because that is like your #1 target list. When we were thinking about this restructure, we've always historically ran the sales team in a regional model. And there's a lot of pitfalls to that model, i.e. if you want to get a good pulse on how is this account performing, what's going on, you would have multiple people that you would have to talk to and then get back to that client. We feel like moving to an account-based model where one person is responsible for that entire relationship across that account, that's just going to be better meeting the client where they're at. And you're ultimately responsible for the growth and performance of that account. And so you can click on my accounts, and then what you can do is you'll see this thumbtack here. If you click that, it allows you to pin that view. And what that means is every time you click down and go to accounts, that's going to be the first thing that pops up for you. So I would think about what views you use the most and then pin those so that you just save time when navigating through Salesforce. And then if we click on an account, there's not too much on this screen. I have cleaned it up and gotten rid of some things. But here you'll just see the name, who owns the account. And one important note here is if you ever see the account owner is Rudy Retriever, that just means it is a house account. No one is responsible for that. And anyone can essentially sell into that account. So if you see an active user at Fetch, someone on the team owns the account, that person's responsible for it. All communication goes through that person. If Rudy Retriever is the account owner and let's just say you got a referral or an inbound lead, something like that, if Rudy owns it, you're good to run with that. And if you close that deal, essentially that account will roll up under your name, and you will then own that account and that relationship moving forward. And then scrolling down, we have some account stats under here. So we'll have how many communities that they manage, if they own any, how many they own, both community count and numbers. We see this customer since field. That's going to be when they first became a Fetch client. And then we have managed active communities. That's going to show how many communities they actually have live with Fetch at this point. And then we have two fields that are new underneath here called last 4 weeks packages delivered and then last 12 weeks packages delivered. This first one, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. It's just going to show how many packages have been delivered to all sites where this account manages that property. And then the 12 weeks one will also populate once we have 12 weeks worth of data. And I'll show you why this one is blank now, because we now have community level SLA stats in Salesforce so that y'all can reference them without having to go into Looker every single time and research the property. And then the last section at the bottom, as it's labeled MSA detail, this only applies to any accounts that have an MSA, so a master service agreement. And then this will just show some more stats on the property, such as the communities they have with us, which we already have up top, markets that they have properties in with Fetch, lifetime packages delivered, hours saved with Fetch, all things that you've seen on the property health report. All right. And then that's all I wanted to touch on as it relates to account. So I'm going to pop open the comment section here. All right. Is there a place where we can upload the total amount of properties? Yeah, John. So that'll actually, so John's question was, is there a place we can upload the total amount of properties we can service? John, that'll actually be completed next weekend. So when we come in next week, you'll see like total serviceable property counts, and that'll be in there. And then Dan will Looker data pool on non-active communities based on the averages. Dan, could you elaborate on that question?
Yeah, just curious if like in Looker, we can go in and find averages for package volumes and stuff like that. I mean, when we're talking about the thresholds, but now that those aren't going to be super in play, I'm just curious, like we're able to go see what an average 275 unit property in Tampa does, if that would pull over based on the community size, or if that's if it needs to be an active community for it to pull.
Yeah, we have nothing for that now, so I'll still defer to Looker on that. But we can think about how we can build that in. And this is probably something I should have touched on before, and was mentioned yesterday on the call about, Schmidt said that every gap that we have is an opportunity. a lot of the restructure, like I said, it's predicated on efficiency. So whenever you have something like a question like Dan said, where you're going to an external place to look for stuff, always bring that information to me so that we can see if we can build it in Salesforce. So for now, Dan, we'll continue to use Looker for that.
Yeah, no problem. Cool.
And then Jack, we will automate that. So the second you have a closed won opportunity, and let's say the account is under Rudy, we'll go ahead and switch that immediately upon the contract being signed. Awesome. All right. Next thing I'm going to run through is going to be contacts. This is another thing that everyone on this team has worked with before. This just represents a client or prospect and under which account they fall. So I'm actually going to log out as Brooks and log in as Haley to show y'all some new fields that we've added here. Okay, so there's now 2 new views on the contact page. One is called My Active Community Managers. The other one is called My Active Regional Managers. And how this is going to filter for you is if you're responsible for that account. If you're responsible for the account, you're also responsible for the community as of next week, once account management is officially been merged with sales. And this will show you any active community managers where you own that relationship. And then these fields over here to the right are brand new and are fields you can reference in email templates. This first one is going to be how many active communities where that person is listed as the property manager. If they are listed as a property manager, it will also have the name of that community. This way, when you're writing emails, you can just create a nice template for like a monthly check-in, quarterly check-in, whatever, and reference those fields. You guys don't have to research them every single time and go and write that in the email. And then just like on the account, we'll have how many packages were delivered to their site in the last 4 weeks. And then we also have what is their on-time rate for those packages over the last 4 weeks. And this way, if you want to filter views and like, let's just say, hey, I want to send an email to every single property manager where we had over 97 or 98% on time for the last 4 weeks. We can set that up to where you just create one view and then you can send all of those emails at once to save you all a ton of time and to really highlight the wins that we're having with our clients rather than just get bogged down by service issues. Because a lot of times, like, our success is silence to them. So if they're not getting hit up by residents, that's good for them. But then it's not really top of mind for them. So we really want to go out there and say like, hey, not sure if you've noticed, but we've delivered, insert how many packages with and then insert what our on-time rate is over the last 4 weeks, just so they know top of mind, hey, Fetch is performing really well right now. And then same thing will happen for the regionals. And so I don't have all of the fields on this view as of yet. They'll be there next week once everyone's officially in their new role. But for regional managers, we have how many active properties do they have with us? And then we have how many remaining serviceable properties do they have that we can potentially go get. So this is kind of that low-hanging fruit for a sales team where you can say, oh, hey, Bill, he has 1 active property with us, but he has 5 other properties where he's a regional manager that we can service that don't use Fetch right now. So like Bill's a really good target for me to go after as an account executive. And these purple icons, we'll touch on that tomorrow. That is Mixmax, the tool that we're going to do a training on. These buttons here just let you add or email people without having to go to your inbox. I can just say, hey, I want to email Alexis, and then it's going to take me straight to my inbox for an email. Same with if we wanted to drop them in a certain campaign, we can just click, say, hey, I want to email these 5 people. I'm going to add them to a sequence really quick and be done with it. So a lot of this is, let's not spend a ton of time on one-by-one emails to people. Let's be as effective as possible. And then last thing I want to mention on contacts is going to be, previously, a lot of y'all know we had a litter of leads in Salesforce. And I know on the AM side, you guys would want to create a contact. It would say, hey, this lead already exists. You need to convert the lead over to a contact. We've moved to a nearly leadless model, i.e. everyone that you create will be a contact. And we've essentially gotten rid of leads in Salesforce with the exception of people that come to our website that are driven from our marketing team. So you as an AE will never have to create a lead. Everybody that you create will be created as a contact. And then, so if anyone has questions on contacts, now would be the time to either raise your hand or drop it in the chat. I see, Paulina, that you asked about same day. That is the plan for us to have same day in there as well for both the 4 weeks and the 12 weeks interval. And one thing I want to mention on those fields, and we'll cover this in more depth later, but it's going to show the last full 4 weeks or 12 weeks. So what is coming into Salesforce right now is a weekly snapshot of those property level SLAs. So just know that if you're emailing someone on Thursday, it's not saying Thursday and then backwards 4 weeks. It's an aggregation of the previous four full weeks. So last Monday back 4 weeks. And those will be updated every single Monday around lunchtime. You'll see them come through. All right. So next, I'm going to move on to leads. Now, like I said, the only time we're going to use leads is when a prospect comes to either our website, marketing might send out an email campaign. They might come to us via an event that we host and we upload them as a lead. But the way you should think about a lead is this person came to us, they're seeking out fetch. The protocol there is they come in through some sort of conversion form, so a form on the website, an ad that we had out there. Then they get created in our system as a lead. As soon as they're created, Kayla Flynn on my team, she assigns them out to the correct rep based on, it'll default to who owns that account. If it's not owned by anyone and it's like an account that's owned by Rudy the Retriever, we'll assign that to the person who is closest to them geographically. Once a lead gets assigned to you, you'll get an email notification saying, hey, this lead has been assigned to you. That's your cue to jump on that ASAP. Obviously, if you're in the middle of a meeting or something that's live, then don't do that. But speed to lead is a huge thing. And it's pretty much a known fact that upwards of 90% of people, when they seek out package management solutions, in our case, they'll go to our website, they might go to Lux or they might go to Parcel. 90% of the time, if not more, the people tend to buy from the person who responds to them first. And so that's why it is so important that once you get that notification, you take a look, you look up their profile, and then you get back to them as soon as you can. So when you click on a lead in Salesforce, you'll see a couple things. When it's assigned to you, the stage is going to be marketing qualified lead. You'll hear us refer to that as an MQL. And then down in this additional details section, you'll see the business role that they put in themselves. So that's going to be community staff, regional management, or executive. And then in this notes/message field, you're going to see what they put in that form when they wanted to reach out to us. So this notes section is really like how you can tailor that email response to them and answer their questions directly. One thing to note as the AEs are getting started, and I'm sure your managers will talk to you about this, if people come to the website and simply just want to see our rates, we do not just respond to them and then let them know what our pricing is. We want to talk to them. We want to take a more consultative approach. So if you see a message that just says, hey, can you send me over pricing for this one thing? That doesn't mean we actually want to respond and with a quote itself. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll just see the activity that is currently happened under that contact. And then on the right, underneath that, you'll see the engagement history, and that's going to track what they actually did on the website. And so we'll see this person came in through a branded campaign that we were running in Google. So you'll see their lead source was Google Ads. So they clicked on that link in Google, went to our request a quote page, and then successfully submitted that form. Sometimes it will be this short. Other times you'll see like 20 or 30 different lines of what they've done on the website. So if you want to look at the engagement history, it might list, hey, they were looking at this page or this page or this page. So they might be curious about more information on what those, what lives on those pages. So like if you see they were viewing a budget season form and it's budget season, you can bring that up in your email response to them. And then last note on leads. So if you get a lead assigned to you, on our team, Kayla's already going to check, are they serviceable? Or like if they're in somewhere like West Texas, she's not going to assign that to you. She'll reach back out to them, let them know, hey, we don't service out there as of yet. We'll put them on some sort of list. But if you get a lead, you start talking to them, and then it becomes apparent that, hey, they're not going to be a viable buyer of Fetch. They might be in Section 8 housing, affordable housing. They can't pass through anything to the residents. What you'll then do is update the stage of the lead to what is called a sales rejected lead. That just means, hey, this came in from marketing, but as a sales rep, I know that this is not a viable lead for the team. On the flip side, if this person is a viable buyer, and it's known, hey, there's an opportunity at play here, what you're then going to do is move the stage to sales qualified lead. You'll save that, and then that's when you're going to convert the lead, like you used to do. Like if you needed to move someone over to a property manager, a regional manager, et cetera. Any questions on leads before I move forward? Okay. Next thing I want to touch on then is going to be opportunities. And to do so, I'm going to log out as Haley and log in as Brooks. All right. So opportunities, we've all at least heard of them or know of them, especially if you've been on the sales team. So for new team members, an opportunity just represents a buying cycle or a deal for a client. And we have a one-to-one relationship of opportunities and communities in Salesforce. So that means, let's say you're talking to a regional, they have 3 properties they want to talk to you about. Those are going to be 3 distinct opportunities in Salesforce. So you'll create an opportunity for each property. And you will want to create that opportunity as soon as you know pretty much the name of the community and that you're talking to a viable buyer. So if someone's engaging with you and they're saying, hey, I want a quote for this property, or I've been looking at Fetch as a possible solution for this property, that's your cue. Okay, I need to create an opportunity and put it in Salesforce. And to do so, you'll just click new on that opportunity page. Go ahead and create one. So you'll have to put in the name, the warehouse in which it would be serviced out of, the lead source. So if they came in through a marketing source, this will populate if you're converting a lead. If you're not converting a lead and you're creating this as a one-off, you'll have to select the lead source. You know, we have quite a few events in here, but the one you'll really, there's 2 main ones that'll happen. That's going to be sales reach out and reference. Reference is just going to be if that person was referred to you by another prospect or active client. And then sales reach out is going to be the lead source that you'll use for if you're just out there cold emailing, calling, whatever you're doing. Sales reach out is going to be your lead source. You'll automatically be the opportunity owner once you create a lead or create an opportunity. Close date. That's going to be your best guess at when you think this is going to close by. We have quite a few optimistic people on the sales team currently. I would say if you're creating an opportunity from scratch, at least 90 days, if not longer, is how long it's going to take to close. Our average deal cycle for a closed won opportunity is just around 95 to 100 days. And so that gives you a good ballpark to know, hey, I'm probably going to be talking to this person for 3 months before it closes, unless it is an inbound lead. Obviously, if it's an inbound lead, they already have thought about purchasing Fetch. And then stage. You will always create an opportunity in the discovery stage. And then you'll see 2 checkboxes here on the left. One is takeover, one is renewal. Pretty self-explanatory here. And I'm sure like your managers will get talk to you about what we need to do in the case of a takeover. But let's just say new management company comes in. Let's say your account is taking over a property that was previously under the ownership of a different account. Since you now have to sell your account on this new property that they're taking over, you do have to create an opportunity for that. And you'll just check this checkbox if hey, this is a takeover opportunity. This isn't a net new sale. And then you'll just put in the community here. Always check and see if it exists already in Salesforce. If it doesn't exist, then you can go ahead and create this, click this new community button. Then you can create that community from scratch. And then you just need to put the account in there and then the management group as well. The owner or developer is great information for us to have, but it tends to be a little hush-hush or hard to find sometimes who the owner or developer is. So you'll notice that the required red asterisk is not next to the owner or developer. And then that's all you need to do to create an opportunity. Awesome. So once you hit save, the opportunity is now in there under your name. It's in your pipeline. Up at the top of the opportunity, you're going to see all of the different stages that we have as a sales team. We'll have a like pipeline SOP and opportunity deck so that you can see in more detail, because it would take me nearly this whole call to just cover opportunities. But as the deal goes through different stages and cycles, you're going to want to update that opportunity as things change. So if you send them a proposal, you'll move it to proposal sent. If you guys are negotiating price, go to negotiations. Once you send the contract sent, so on and so forth. All right. And then, so we have our close date here. We have the launch date as well. Just like when you update stages, you're going to want to update all of the information on the opportunity as things change. So if they show, hey, we're going to move fast, you can move the close date up, change the launch date accordingly, how the conversation goes. And then very important to do is to add a contact role on an opportunity. You always need at least one primary contact on an opportunity. So to do that, on the right-hand side here under contact roles, you'll click down, you'll hit add contact role. It's going to pop up with every single contact that is under that account that you just opened the opportunity under. You'll just select that person, or if there's multiple people, you'll select all of them. Click next. And then up at the top, it says primary contact optional. This is where you'll select, hey, this person is the primary. So like, let's just say, for example, we were talking to Allison, Amber, and Barbie. They'll come over here, they'll list all three, and then you have to choose like, who is the primary person I'm talking to? Who is the decision maker? Who's their main point of contact? Click save. And then you'll see those people populate on the right-hand side. All right. Any questions for opportunities before I jump into quotes? Yeah, Dan, it's a good point. So, remember that the pre-meeting before NAA when he who should not be named was here, we decided to create that automation to push out close dates to 90 days plus. We can talk about as a team if we want to get rid of that. Reason we did that is people were creating opportunities and then putting the close date as like next month, and then they would just push.
I don't think it's a bad idea to have the 90 days. I definitely support that. Is there a way we can make a rule that if somebody selects a date, that is what stays rather than it routing to 90 days, or is it kind of one or the other?
It's pretty much one or the other. So yeah, there's really no way around it. The way the logic works now is if someone selects a day that's earlier than 90 days, it's going to push it to 90 days. But if out of the gate they push it, say 5 months, then it's not going to change it.
It's not going to go shorter. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I just had a takeover that came across yesterday. I did it, and they're going to sign it by the end of the week, and then it defaulted to December, and then they signed today. So it was like, not the end of the world. Just was curious. So.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good note. Jay, can you take a note for us to update that flow and have it not fire on takeovers? Thank you. Good call out there, Dan. All right. Next thing I'm going to cover are quotes. So quotes are an object that sits under the opportunity and are related to an opportunity, and it is what reflects the price that we're going to charge the client. So you have an opportunity, you have to create a quote underneath the opportunity, and the quote is what creates a contract once it's time to actually generate a contract and send it to the client. So once you're ready to create a quote, so you create the opportunity, you talk to the client, they gave you the property name, all the information on the property, and you're ready to go ahead and give them pricing. Up in the top right, you'll see a button on the opportunity that says new quote. You'll select that. In here, you'll see a couple fields pop up. You'll see the related community, the subscription term. This is just the number of months that the deal is active for. Our default contract is 2 years. Very, very rarely do we ever deviate from that. So it pre-populates to 24. The sales rep, that's going to be whoever's creating the quote. The start date of the quote, that comes from the launch date. How many units they have, and then what the renewal percentage is. Out of the gate, our renewal percentage uplift is 10%. Some of the NAEs on the team, like the director of sales, will get with you and like y'all will do a total debriefing on that account. Some of our MSA clients have already pre-negotiated a lower renewal uplift. So some of them might have a 5% rather than a 10. And so it's important when you're creating the quote that you update it from 10% down to 5 or 3, whatever the percentage is. Assuming this all looks good, then you'll click save. The quote will then be created. You can navigate to it by clicking the quote number in this green screen. As you can see, it eventually goes away. So up at the top of the opportunity screen, you'll see there's this quotes that you can hover over, and then you can go down and click on the quote. Once you create the quote, first step to do is go ahead and add that pricing for the client. You'll do that by, in the top right of the quote, you'll hit add/edit products. Once you click that, it'll open up this wizard, and then you have to select what type of property it is, whether it is a lease-up property or a stabilized property. You don't have to click the implementation fee product, but it will show up every single time. So let's just say this is a stabilized community. I would click stabilized, then click select. And then from here, we're going to see a breakdown of their price for every single month. It will by default show you what the total is, but then you can click this little down caret here, and then it's going to show you the breakdown of how we got to that price. And so the only field you'll really be changing here is this list unit price field. By default, when you create a quote and you select the product, Salesforce knows, hey, this is a urban or community that falls in our urban zone, and it's a tier 3 deal. It's going to pre-populate with that pricing. So that's what it's showing here, is that $17 per door. And the default ramp is $6 for the first 3 months, $12 for the next 3, and then $17 from that point forward. Now it's important to note that as long as we hit that $17 rate, it doesn't matter how we get there, as long as it's under a certain discount percentage, which you should have covered in one of the Google Classroom sessions that you had. If you haven't yet, you will cover that later. And if you're talking to the client and they say, hey, the first month we don't have a lot of turns or renewals, we have to change that to 0, and we're going to waive the first month for them, then we'll just change that to 0, and it's going to update the quote. So now in month 1, they don't pay anything. Let's say in month 2, they're going to go to $4. Then we change that to $4. Something important to note is whenever you change a month's price to something that's not 0, it's going to propagate that down to the rest of the months. So I changed month 2 to 4. So you'll see everything after went to $4. The only reason month 7 and after is higher is because we force a $1,500 minimum to our clients. And so Salesforce CPQ knows, hey, we can't give them a rate under $15. So I'm going to choose or under 1,500 as a total. So let's say month 2 was 4, and then we're going to go back to the 6. We'll go back to the standard 12 in month 4, and then in month 7, we're going to end at 17. Now you can see this is the pricing you're giving that client, waived first month, discounted month 2, and then standard rest of the contract. So that's how you change the monthly fee that they're going to pay. The last section here down at the bottom is the implementation fee. Here, we don't actually change the list price. What we do is we apply a discount under this additional discount field. And you can do that either in percentages. So you can say, hey, we're going to give them 50% off. So you'll see this went from $22,500 to $1,125. Or if you don't want to do the percentages and you just said, hey, we're giving you $500 off, then you can change it from percentage to US dollars and then type in 500 and you'll see the discount applied. Once you're done making those changes, you'll just hit save. Then you're good to go. The discount rate will always be displayed here up in the top left in terms of percentages. So as long as this is under 28%, you're good to go and give that to the client. You don't need approval from anyone else. If it is above 28% and we don't have any other incentives going on, then you do need approval from sales leadership there. So you'll keep this in what is called the draft status until you're ready to send the contract to the client. Once you're ready to do that, then you'll hit submit for approval. And then because this was under that 28%, it automatically approved. If it's above that, it's going to say it's pending approval, and then the approval will get routed to the correct manager. Quickly here, the quote is where you generate the actual contract from. And so you can do that by up in the top right. You'll see this button here that says generate document. When you click that, this isn't going to work for me because I'm logged in as Brooks under my DocuSign. So you won't get an error. When you generate a document, you hit generate document, and then a Word doc is going to pop up. You can just hit download, and then you can send that to the client. And then one note on generating a document. In the bottom of your quote page, you have this subsection called quote options. And in here, we have a bunch of checkboxes for what you want the contract to include. Do we want it to include Appendix A, Appendix B, C, D, all of the appendices? And then the package management agreement. Those are the first 6 pages of our contract that lay out all the terms and conditions of our contract. So if you want it to print everything, then you just need to select all of these, hit save. And then this way, when you go hit generate document, it's going to know, hey, we're going to include everything in that Word doc that we generate. You'll sometimes hear people say, hey, they just need a property addition form, especially on the national team. You're going to hear that a lot. If someone already has an MSA with us, a lot of times they just need these first 2 forms. Property addition form, that's our Appendix A. And so you would just uncheck all of the other boxes other than the 2 that you need, and then hit generate document, and it's going to shorten the length of that contract. Another thing that pertains pretty much only to the national team. So we have this field here called named account contract. And this just lists a couple of our partners that we work with that have custom contracts that totally differ from ours. And so if you're working with like a Bell Partners, Graystar, Wood, etc., they have a completely different contract. So you just have to say, hey, I need to select their special contract before I generate that agreement. Okay. And pause there. Just covered a lot of stuff. Any immediate questions on quotes? Cool. I will say the quote section, it is a lot to learn. I highly suggest if you want to, go ahead, create a test opportunity, create a quote if you're new to opportunities and quotes, play around with it, try to generate an agreement. Once you're done, you can just Slack me the link to that opportunity and say like, hey, I created this as a test. I just wanted to mess around and see if I understood what was going on. Then I can just delete it from the system. Yes, Dan. Good point. Just know you will not be able to move an opportunity to closed won until the quote status is approved. That's our catch-all to say, hey, you didn't go rogue, give client pricing that wasn't approved by Fetch, and you got an agreement signed. We're not going to honor that. Okay. So last object I'm going to touch on is going to be communities. I think everyone's pretty comfortable with communities here. A couple things I do want to touch on though. First off, we tried to clean up the communities page so it's not so much. I tried to cut the load time nearly in half. And I did so by there's no longer this long list of stuff on the right-hand side of the community. If you need to reference any of those things, there's quick links up at the top to all of those things. So if you need to add a note, if you need to add a file, look at cases, you can just do that by hovering over those at the top-hand section. It really decreases the load time there. The only things that I've kept on the right-hand side of the community are any invoices that client has had. So you can see how much that they're getting charged and when we sent that invoice. And then on the right-hand side, we have those service metrics. And those are going to be those weekly snapshots of how that property is doing. And like I said, those will be created every Monday. And you can click on them and you can see, okay, for BLF, for last week, they had 126 packages delivered, how many logged, how many active users, what does that come to on a packages per unit, and then on time, same day, and CSAT scores. Looking at 1 week at a time really doesn't get you too much. And so now that we have all of that in Salesforce, we can start to plot these out and also send you proactive notifications to say, hey, their adoption is going down over time. That might be like an inkling that we need to set up maybe like a retraining, do some sort of adoption campaign, reach out to the property, etc. But my goal was to get all of that information from Only Living in Looker, where you have to seek out the information and instead be able to pull it into Salesforce, and then we can do active alerts off of it. All right. And then the community page itself is pretty much all the same. There's nothing new here with the exception of the service stats at the bottom. So moving with that same theme that we had for last 4 weeks, last 12 weeks at the account, the contact level will have the same thing for service stats as well. So it'll show last 4 weeks packages delivered and then the on time rate. Reason these two are the same right now is because we don't have 12 weeks worth of data in Salesforce. We only have 4 weeks. That's why they're the same. We'll send out a note once we reach the 12-week mark of having data in Salesforce. Then you can start to use the 12-week field and like email templates and so on. All right. And then for the current sales team, something that you haven't done before that the account management team has is update communities when they are at risk of churn or when they are churning. Where you'll do that is in this community cancellation section. If you feel like someone is at risk of churning, whether they've reached out, asked for a contract, have actively said, hey, we're looking at canceling, adoption is like so low, it's scary, then you can come in here and then you can say, hey, they are a risk of churn. And then you can list out what your action item is going to be to follow up with that client. If you're coming from the AM organization, there's going to be no changes to how you're doing this currently. In Google Classroom, I believe there's a how-to or SOPs around risk of churn. So you can reference that for the exact how-tos. But for all of the RSMs, national reps, if you have someone that you're worried about, you'll update this risk of churn here. And then same thing, if they do end up confirming, hey, they're going to cancel, then in the cancellation notice date, you'll fill that out. You'll fill out why they are canceling, and then whatever their last date of service is going to be. All right. All right. If I don't have any questions, I'm going to try to squeeze in maps and then the lease up tracker in the last 10 minutes. So for anyone on the sales team that isn't coming from the account management side, please listen up here because it's going to be brand new to you. If you have sold a lease up deal, what the account management team has done historically is always reached out to them every single month to try to get how many occupied units that they have, so that we can update how many we're going to bill them for. In order to update that, we update those directly in Salesforce, and you're going to do it with this lease ups application here. And you can easily filter for your communities by typing in like your name. So if I'm Amber, I can just type that in. You'll now see the salesperson for any deals that Amber have sold have filtered. And then for whatever the month is that we're getting occupancy for, and remember lease ups work backwards. So in September, we're going to bill them for occupancy they had through August. You would come in here and say, for example, a ADL has 45 occupied units, AGS has, I don't know, 27, et cetera, et cetera. Fill those in, and then you would hit save. All that does is it creates a record for us in the automated billing, and then we know, okay, that's how many units we're going to send them an invoice for. All right. Sweet. And then last thing that I want to show everyone is Salesforce Maps, which you can easily get to from the home. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Amber asks, what's the deadline on getting those in, which I am also curious on.
Oh, yeah. So we tend to bill, so we bill on the first business day of the month. With the exception of lease ups, we try to get them out by the 15th of the month. And so the goal is by the midway point in the month, we want to have those occupancy counts. You should share with the client probably earlier with that so that their deadline is earlier than ours. In the scenario that we don't get it by the 15th, it's not the end of the world. We can hold the invoice until we do get the count. But it's very important that we reach out to them on the first of the month. And that's something using the tool MixMax we're going to talk about. Tomorrow, we can just set up like an automated cadence to just say, hey, this person's a property manager on a lease up, automatically send them an email on the first of the month. Yeah. I agree. We need a hard deadline. Jeanette would love if we had a hard deadline. That much I know. Yeah. I think the 5th works. Okay. Any other questions there? Thanks for chiming in, Dan and Amber. Sweet. Okay. So Salesforce Maps, all it is it's a mapping tool in Salesforce. Pretty self-explanatory there. And because we have such a geographically constrained business, we figured it was important that we had access to what those zones we can service directly in Salesforce, not just in a Google map. This way we can overlay data in there, as in like where are active properties, how are they performing, where are future like prospective properties at as it relates to properties that we service and the warehouse. So to get there, from your homepage under the helpful sales links, there's a hyperlink for maps. So if you just click on maps, it'll always launch itself in a brand new tab. All right. So I'll walk through for any of the new AEs that have joined the team. When you launch maps, everything is going to be blank for you by default. You're not going to have anything that automatically populates. I'll show you how we can do that. So when you launch maps, it's going to show recent, which will be nothing for you, and then just a map of the US. If you click on this saved tab over on the left-hand side and click in the corporate folder, then you'll start to see options that you can plot. So we have a folder called Market Maps. If you click into that folder, it's going to show every single market that we're in. And then in each one, it's going to show a couple things. So it's going to show the serviceable zone. It's going to show the urban area. So anywhere where we need to charge the urban rate. And then you can ignore the hot pocket things for now. Those were areas that we essentially operations said it would be very advantageous for us if we could sell properties in this zone because it would help with routing. And so you can simply click on them and then I'm going to zoom here and then you'll see, hey, this is where we can service in Nashville. That's one way to do it. Another way is rather than clicking into the map itself, if you hover over the folder and go to the three dots, then you can just click plot all, and then it's going to plot everything. So anything in blue is going to be where we can service. Anything in red is what we consider our urban zone, where we need to charge that higher rate. And then green in this instance show where operations says we would love to have units in these areas because they would help us become more profitable. All right. So that's how you can plot things, is you can hit plot all. Another thing that you can do is if you, like, let's just say, like, I'll take Ashley, for example. Well, I guess national. So national reps you're going to sell all over. Well, let's take Brooks as an RAE. Most of his accounts are centered out of Houston, but they also populate or have properties in Dallas, Central Texas, etc. What he can do so that he doesn't have to come into maps every single time and plot them is he can go to the Houston, and then he can hover over all of the serviceable zones, go to the three dots, and then under actions, you can click toggle plot on load. When you do that, you'll get a little success icon that comes up. What that means is, hey, every single time I launch Salesforce Maps, I automatically want you to map that information. So if you're an RAE, like, yes, you can sell in other places, but I would take your like main areas. So like Madison, like I would put Salt Lake and Denver and go through and say, hey, every time I launch maps, automatically plot those areas because that's where I'm concentrated out of. So Brooks would just come through and then toggle all of the hue areas. And then next time he launches maps, those will automatically come up for him. So I am going to just plot all of Houston really quick. All right, so here we have all of our zones in Houston. If you click on a zone, you'll be able to see what the warehouse is. So that's our Hue 3 zone. Also, it defaults to this map, which is not Google Maps, and I hate that we can't change it. But up in the top right, you'll see this little map icon. If you click down, there's a bunch of different options you can choose from, and you can choose Google. And so then it goes to Google Road, which is what most of us are comfortable with. From here, if you're talking to a prospective client and they bring up a community, and you want to see, without having to check if it's in Salesforce, can we service this property? You can simply just start typing in the top right the name of, or the address of the property. And so like this was a place I used to live at in Houston. And so I type it in and it's going to plot exactly where it is. And so then I would know, okay, this is going to be a Hue 1 serviced property. We can service that property for the client. And because it falls within the red zone, it's going to be a tier 3 urban priced deal. So that's how you can quickly just check, hey, is something serviceable or not? You can do that live on a call. I don't know what sales does right now as far as best practices, but if you're meeting with someone for the first time and you're in a discovery call, I would have maps pulled up. So this way, if they give you the address of a certain asset, you can just check for them really quick live on the call and get them that answer. All right. So that's how you can see different serviceable zones. Also in that corporate folder is going to be a couple of what are called marker layers. And that's going to be whenever you see the title of something and it has this green little map marker on it, that means it's actually going to plot things in the map, not just an area, but it's actually going to drop things in there. An example of one is warehouses. So I can come in here, I can plot warehouses, and then it's going to show me, hey, where every single warehouse is on the map. Same thing for, like, let's say my account's serviceable properties. All right. This now is going to show me, hey, I'm Brooks. I have all of my accounts that are assigned under my name. If it's an active property under my account, they're going to show up in green. If they're not active, they're going to show up in black. And so this is where Brooks can really triangulate, okay, there's a lot of black markers here. These are my properties to go out and get from my accounts. And so as I zoom in here, let's say I notice, okay, we service, what's this property here? Abbey at Memorial. That is right next to this Arden Terrace property. It's managed by Valiant. Hey, it would be really good if I grow and grab, what are the stats that we're doing at Abbey at Memorial? Is it a really successful property? Because then I can go and then reach out to this property manager at Arden, and like, that's a way to say, hey, we service the property right across the street, whatever you want to use as a sales motion. But this is just a way for you to be able to know where those properties exist that are assigned under your accounts, and whether or not they're active. Cool. And then another thing, so we have all of this mapped out. It's a lot of information. Let's say I'm Brooks and I just wanted to target this western side of Houston urban. I can, up in the top right, you'll see draw a polygon as an option. If I click that, let's say I want to find all of these properties here and I want to target them. It now creates, on the left-hand side, you see boundary. You can say, hey, only show me the properties inside that shape. It then filtered to just say, now I'm only showing you those properties. Up in the top left, there's this option to click list. We now have the name of all of those properties. And I need to add this because I see it's not an option for Brooks. But we can export this to Excel. If you just want a spreadsheet and say, like, hey, this week, this is my hit list. I'm going to go after all of the regionals and property managers in this area. You can do that. All right. I know I'm over on time. There's quite a bit to cover. Any questions as it relates to maps in particular? Or just in general at this point, because I've covered everything. Nope. All right. Sweet. Cool. Well, I'll stop presenting here. And because we're over on time, I'll send an email out similar to how I did last week on what changes are going to come to Salesforce when you log in on Monday, just to save us some time here. But I really appreciate the time. I don't like talking for 80 minutes in a row. It's a lot for me. I'm a computer person. I like to be an introvert. So I appreciate y'all putting up with me for the time being. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. There is going to be a deck that goes out the end of next week, with all of this laid out with some screenshots, and then a link to the recording of this as well, and on the last slide, so that you can go back and listen to it if you'd like. So All right, everyone. Let's go get it. Take care.
Thanks, Whited.